Hello, welcome to my channel. My name is Lizzie, and for today's video we are talking 90s horror. I thought that it would be a fun idea to give you guys my top 10 favorite 90s horror films. I know a few other channels have been doing some of these top decade films. Emma from Spooky Astronauts and Vicky from Nightmare Maven, two great friends of mine, have been doing that over on their channels, so I will leave links in the description to their channels if you're not subscribed to them. I'm sure most of you are, but if you aren't, you definitely should be. They are two amazing ladies in the horror tube community, and I thought I would jump on the bandwagon and do my own. I don't know if I'm going to do any other decades. If you guys want me to, definitely let me know. But if you are not new to my channel, you already know that 90s is my jam. I just love a good 90s horror film. There are a lot of 90s slashers on this list, of course, which shouldn't come as a surprise to anyone, but I'm excited. Now, keep in mind, this is my own list. This is my own opinion. I'm not saying that any of these films are the best horror films ever, or even the best films to come out of the 90s. These are just particularly my favorites. Of course, there's gonna be some cheesy ones on here. The 90s definitely did also produce some cheese fests, but I love those types of films, so none of these should really be a surprise to anyone unless you're new to my channel. So if you're going to leave any comments regarding these, please have just a friendly debate and definitely let me know what some of your favorites are. And if you are new here, feel free to subscribe and join our little family. So let's go ahead and just get into the list. So my number 10 spot goes to The Faculty. The Faculty is about a high school whose teachers and principal get taken over by body snatcher type aliens, and the students must fend for themselves to find a cure, figure out what's happening, and defeat these teachers. This film is truly very 90s. You have Josh Hartnett, Elijah Wood, Clea Duvall, I think is how her name is pronounced. Just very 90s staple actors, and I love it. For number 9, we have Candyman. While researching superstitions in a housing project in Chicago's North Side, Helen learns about the Candyman, a knife-wielding figure of urban legend that some of her neighbors believe to be responsible for recent murders. This is actually a film that I had watched for the first time last October. I believe it was the first time I had seen this film. I did a review for it back then. As part of my Halloween must-watches, I also talked about it in 101 Days of Horror, and it really is a staple in the horror genre, as well as just in the 90s in general. I'm sure most of you have at least heard of this film. If you have not seen it, I highly suggest it. Of course, there is a remake that is set to be coming out, which I am actually really excited about, and hope that that remake also draws in a new crowd of people to check out the original. And I mean, Tony Todd, what else can you say? Number 8, now this is a film that has been debated about whether or not people believe it to be a horror film, but I did a whole video talking about that, so you can check that out. I'm not gonna get into that debate of topic in this video, but it is The Sixth Sense. The film tells the story of Cole, a boy who is able to see and talk to the dead, and Malcolm, a child psychologist who tries to help him. This film is so good. I talked about it and did a whole review for it during my 101 days, so make sure that you check that out as well. And I definitely think it deserves to be on a must-watch horror list. It is just such a fantastic film. It has a total twist I'm sure most people know about by now, but I think definitely if you watch this film for the first time not knowing how it ends, and definitely when it came out in the 90s, I think it's definitely shocking and just a really good fucking film. And number 7, again, Cheese Fest going on, but it's I Know What You Did Last Summer. I can't help it. I love this film. Like I mentioned, I love 90s slasher films. A year after running over a fisherman and dumping his body in the water, 4 friends reconvene when one of them receives a frightening letter telling her that their crime was seen. Another film that is based in the urban legend world, along with Candyman, and another film that is going to be on this list, to give a little hint. And yeah, it's a cheese fest of a film. It's definitely not the best slasher film out there. There's moments, but I love this film. I think it's such a good time. I mean, again, you have a very genuinely 90s cast. You have Jennifer Love Hewitt, my girl Sarah Michelle Gellar, and Ryan Phillippe. So just, it's a very, very 90s casted film, and very 90s cheesy slasher. The sequels, the second one's okay. The third one just completely goes off rails, but this film, I love. I think it's great, especially if you enjoy things set in urban legends, which I very much do, and you're just looking for a nonsensical, fun watch. So if you have not checked out this film and you love a good cheesy slasher, highly, highly suggest it. On to number 5. Speaking of urban legends, it is Urban Legends. I actually just rewatched this. It has been a while since I watched this, so I wanted to rewatch it before putting it on the list, and I was reminded how good this film is, how much I love this one. This is obviously a film about urban legends. It is about a group of friends in college who one by one start to get killed off in ways related to urban legends. These are all students who happen to be attending a class given by none other than our boy Freddie, Robert Englund, and which is just another amazing aspect to this film. And this is a film that I feel like does not get too roped in to the cheesiness of some of these other 90s films. It does take itself pretty serious. It gets kind of a little cheesy towards the end. I feel like once the killer is revealed, then stuff starts to get very cheesy, but that doesn't happen until towards the very, very end of the film, so you have a long way to go. It has a great cast in this one as well. You have a very young Jared Leto, who throughout the film is kind of led to believe that he might have something to do with it. He definitely gives off a creepy vibe. Not so shocked because it's Jared Leto. And you also have Tara Reid, who I think does a good job in this film. I mean, she kind of plays like the ditzy slutty blonde character in the film, which I guess she kind of always does, or Tara Reid. But I really like this film. I think that everyone does an amazing job, and like I said, I love things based in urban legend. So I definitely think if you enjoy things based in urban legend and you have not watched the film Urban Legend, you totally should. Also, get a little off track for a minute, but some recommendations I have is on Amazon. I rented this on Amazon Prime, but if you already have an Amazon Prime account, you can watch the show Urban Legends. There's only like 2 or 3 seasons, but it's done in the vein of reenactment. So they do these reenactments of urban legends, and then they tell you at the end of each episode whether or not the urban legend true or false, and it's really fun. I love that show. I also highly suggest Killer Legends. It is, I know it has been on Netflix in the past. I am not sure if it's still on there, but they go over giving you the true story history behind some urban legends, and I highly suggest both of those, especially if you do like this film, because they take a real dive into urban legends. And sorry, just had to give that little rant of recommendation for you. And on to our 4th film, which I'm sure more people, I'm sure some of you expect this one to be a little bit higher on the list, but it is Scream 2. I love this film, obviously, but there are a few films that I feel like a bit better than the Scream sequel, which we will get to, but Scream 2 follows, of course, the events of the first Scream. Sydney is now in college and she's trying to move on with her life when two college students are brutally murdered in a movie theater while watching the premiere of Stab, which of course is based off of the Woodsboro murders from the first Scream. It's a fantastic sequel. Scream 2 is definitely a beloved sequel. It's one of the best sequels, and it definitely holds up. It's such an amazing film. I really don't think I need to talk about it too much, but if you're wanting more in-depth, I of course have reviewed all of the Scream films, did a whole series on those, so feel free to check out that whole playlist for a deeper dive. But of course I love Scream 2. But moving up a little higher than that, our third film is Silence of the Lambs. I recently talked about this one as well for 101 Days, and man, I am passionate about this film. I love this film. While on the hunt for an active serial killer, FBI agent Clarice is sent to interview and get help from a violent psychopath who is serving life behind bars for various murders and acts of cannibalism. I'm sure most of you have seen this film or at least heard of it. If you are somebody who, for whatever reason, has put off watching this film, why? It is amazing. The hype around this film is real. Like I said, it still holds up to this day. Every time I watch this film, I just get so blown away. There are moments that still shock me, even though I know that they are coming, and it's so good. But again, full review, so you can watch all my ramblings about this film in that video. And now for the second film, it is Wes Craven's New Nightmare. As Heather considers making another film with Craven, her son Dylan falls under the spells of an iconic disfigured villain, Freddy Krueger. Eventually, Heather must confront Freddy's demonic spirit to save the soul of Dylan. Now, obviously, we all know that Wes Craven directed the first Nightmare on Elm Street film, but unfortunately, he did not go on to continue to have any part of the continuing franchise. I believe that this one is actually the only other one. Correct me if I'm wrong, I do apologize. But I believe this is the only other one that Wes Craven actually has any part in. In this film, if you have not seen it, oh my gosh, I really, really highly suggest this one. Highly suggest this one. It basically mixes the fiction world of the Nightmare franchise with reality. You have Heather basically playing herself, as well as Robert Englund. He is, in fact, a separate character from Freddy within this film, and Wes plays himself as well. And Wes is trying to convince Heather to make another Nightmare film. And as the description said, while debating, her son starts to be affected by the world of Freddy Krueger. This film makes a lot of references to the original. There are copied scenes, which it's just really a fun time. It can be a little cheesy at moments, I'm not gonna lie, but it is still such a fantastic film, especially if you really love the first Freddy film and you really just love Wes Craven in general, which I do. So probably part of why I love this film so much, and it's just so good. I love this one. And number one spot goes to, at no surprise to probably anyone, it's Scream. If you're not aware, I fucking love this film. It is hands down my favorite horror film of all time. Scream follows Sidney Prescott, who a year after her mother's death, some of her fellow students start to be killed off, and she must fight and try to figure out who the killer is. I'm sure most of you have seen Scream, but again, if you haven't seen this film, cannot recommend it enough. Again, like I mentioned, I have done a whole series review for this one. Definitely check out my full review for this film for more in-depth details onto why I love this film. This film definitely helped revamp the slasher genre. At the time, we had so many, throughout the 80s, you had so many of these big name franchises that were just popping out sequels left and right. People were getting a little annoyed with it, and slashers had kind of started to die, and Scream came along, another brilliant film by Mr. Wes Craven, and really helped restart people's love for slasher films. And I do not think that it gets enough credit for that, because it's so great, it's fantastic. I, of course, love this film, and cannot recommend it more. And that is my list for my top 10 favorite 90s horror films. I hope that you guys did enjoy this. Go ahead and let me know what your top 10 favorite 90s films are in the comments below, and if you did enjoy this, please do give it a big old thumbs up. Make sure you hit that subscribe button for more horror related content, and I will see you guys again later with another video. Bye!